At 11:42 p.m., a quiet suburban street looked perfectly safe. 12 seconds later, a shadow stepped into frame. By midnight, a man was dead inside his own home. The killer was caught on camera. But the camera did not tell the whole truth. What it revealed shocked the neighborhood. What it missed made the case even darker. A trusted friend. A hired blade. And a whisper that investigators could not explain for years. Stay with me, because this is not just a murder caught on camera. This is the story of betrayal hiding in plain sight. Caught on camera, brutal murder stuns the neighborhood true crime documentary. The street was quiet that night. Too quiet for a Friday. Porch lights glowed like tired eyes. A cold wind slid between the houses. Security cameras blinked red in the darkness. Watching. Recording. Waiting. At 11:42 p.m., a shadow moved across Maplewood Drive. A man in a dark hoodie walked with steady steps. His head slightly lowered. His hands buried deep in his pockets. Across the street, inside a small brick house, Daniel Harper stood at his kitchen sink. The faucet dripped in slow rhythm. Tick. 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 He felt uneasy. The kind of unease that creeps up the spine without warning. He glanced toward the window. The curtain shifted with the wind. Or so he thought. Outside, the camera above his garage captured everything in sharp black and white. The hooded figure stopped at the edge of the driveway. Looked toward the house. Stood perfectly still. For 12 long seconds. Inside, Daniel dried his hands. He felt a pressure in his chest. As if the air had grown heavier. He turned off the kitchen light. Darkness swallowed the room. Across the street, Mrs. Calloway was watching television. Her small terrier began to growl. Low. Threatening. She turned the volume down. Listened. Nothing but the wind. Back outside, the hooded man stepped forward. Gravel crunched beneath his boots. The sound echoed louder than it should have. The security camera adjusted focus. The image sharpened. His face remained hidden. A gloved hand reached toward the side gate. The latch clicked open. Soft. Careful. Intentional. Daniel heard something. A faint metallic snap. He froze in the hallway. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He told himself it was nothing. Just the wind. Just the old gate. But the house felt different now. Occupied. Watched. The back door handle began to turn. Slowly. Deliberately. The lock held for one brief second. Then splintered. Wood cracked like a gunshot. Daniel staggered backward. A tall figure filled the doorway. Silent. Controlled. The kitchen clock read 11:47 p.m. 5 minutes since the shadow first appeared. The intruder stepped inside. Boots leaving faint wet prints on the tile. Daniel raised his hands. His voice trembled as he demanded to know what the man wanted. The intruder said nothing. Not a single word. Only breathing. Slow and measured. A glint of metal caught the light from the street. A blade. Long. Polished. Hungry. Daniel backed into the living room. His heel caught the edge of the rug. He fell hard against the coffee table. The air rushed from his lungs. The camera outside recorded shadows moving behind thin curtains. Abrupt. Violent. Inside, a struggle erupted. Furniture scraped across hardwood. A lamp shattered. Glass scattered like frozen rain. Daniel fought with desperate strength. His hands gripped fabric. Pulled. Tore. The intruder remained relentless. The blade rose. Then came down. Once. Twice. Again. Daniel gasped. A wet choking sound filled the room. Warmth spread across his shirt. The metallic scent of blood thickened the air. His vision blurred. The ceiling above him spun slowly. The intruder leaned close. Close enough for Daniel to see cold eyes beneath the hood. Empty. Unmoved. The attack ended as suddenly as it began. Silence crashed over the house. The clock ticked on. 11:52 p.m. The intruder stood. Breathing steady once more. He wiped the blade on the fallen curtain. Walked toward the back door. Stepped into the night. The security camera captured his exit clearly. His face lifted for one brief moment. Just enough. Enough for the world to see him later. Enough for the neighborhood to wake to sirens and flashing red lights. Mrs. Calloway opened her door at the sound of police arriving. Blue lights reflected in her frightened eyes. Officers rushed inside the Harper home. Boots heavy. Voices urgent. They found Daniel lying motionless in a pool of dark red. The television still playing softly in the corner. The camera footage would air on every news station by morning. A quiet street transformed into a crime scene. Neighbors whispering behind closed blinds. Parents holding their children closer that night. Because evil had walked calmly down their street. Caught on camera. Clear as day. And it had looked ordinary. The footage spread across the city before sunrise. Grainy images replayed again and again. The hooded figure approaching. The deliberate pause. The calculated entry. Detective Laura Mendez stood in the dim glow of the evidence room. Coffee untouched beside her. Eyes fixed on the screen. She replayed the 12-second pause outside the driveway. Over and over. There was something deliberate in that stillness. Not hesitation. Not fear. Recognition. The man knew the house. He knew the timing. He knew Daniel would be alone. Outside, yellow tape snapped in the wind. Neighbors gathered in clusters. Whispers passing like static. No one remembered seeing a strange car. No one heard a scream. Only the wind. And later, the sirens. Inside the Harper home, the metallic scent of blood still lingered. It clung to the curtains. To the couch. To the air itself. Crime scene photographers moved carefully. Flashbulbs burst in cold white light. Each image freezing violence into permanent record. Detective Mendez walked slowly through the living room. Her shoes avoided dark stains on the hardwood floor. She studied the broken lamp. The overturned table. The deep scratch marks near the hallway wall. Daniel had fought. Hard. Her gaze shifted toward the back door. Splintered wood hung loose around the lock. Forced entry. But controlled. No panic. Just precision. Back in the surveillance footage room, a technician zoomed in. Frame by frame. The hooded man stepping out of the driveway after the murder. His stride calm. Unhurried. At 11:53 p.m., he looked directly toward the camera. For less than a second. The hood slipped back slightly. A sharp jawline. A faint scar near the left eyebrow. Detective Mendez leaned closer to the screen. Her pulse quickened. She had seen that scar before. Not in person. In a file. 3 months earlier. Daniel Harper had testified in court. A burglary case turned violent. The accused had stared at him across the courtroom. Cold eyes. A thin scar near his eyebrow. Released on bail 2 weeks ago. Name, Victor Kane. The room grew very still. Outside, thunder rolled across the morning sky. As if the world itself felt the weight of the discovery. An arrest warrant was issued within the hour. Police cruisers spread through the city. Sirens cutting through traffic. But Victor Kane was not at his registered address. His apartment stood empty. Closet bare. Bed stripped. Gone before sunrise. Back on Maplewood Drive, residents watched from behind curtains once more. Fear had replaced comfort. Every passing stranger now suspicious. Every unfamiliar sound magnified. Detective Mendez returned to the original footage again. Something bothered her. At 11:41 p.m., 1 minute before the hooded figure appeared, a light turned on inside Daniel's house. In the upstairs bedroom. Then turned off. No movement followed. She requested interior camera access from a neighboring property. A doorbell camera facing the Harper front yard. At 11:38 p.m., Daniel stepped outside briefly. He looked toward the street. As if expecting someone. His posture tense. He checked his phone. Then went back inside. He had been waiting. But for whom? Phone records arrived that afternoon. The last call Daniel received was at 11:34 p.m. Unknown number. Lasted 22 seconds. Cell tower data placed the caller within 3 blocks of Maplewood Drive. Victor Kane had motive. Victor Kane had a scar. But Victor Kane did not place that call. The number was registered to a disposable phone. Purchased that same evening. Paid in cash. The case shifted. The certainty cracked. Security footage from a gas station 2 miles away revealed something chilling. At 11:15 p.m., Victor Kane stood beside another man. Taller. Broader. Face partially visible under harsh fluorescent light. They spoke briefly. No aggression. No urgency. Just calm conversation. At 11:29 p.m., Victor drove east. Away from Maplewood Drive. Traffic cameras confirmed it. Time-stamped. Undeniable. Which meant the man in the hoodie was not Victor Kane. The scar had been real. But perhaps not unique. Detective Mendez felt the ground shift beneath her certainty. The camera had captured a face. But not the whole truth. Back at the Harper house, forensic results returned. 2 distinct sets of shoe prints in the backyard. Different sizes. Different tread patterns. One waited near the fence. The other approached the door. Daniel had not faced one attacker. He had faced 2. The 12-second pause in the driveway suddenly meant something else. A signal. A silent confirmation. Someone inside had answered that late-night call. Someone Daniel trusted enough to step outside moments before the attack. The investigation widened. Friends. Colleagues. Family. Each interview peeling back layers of a life that appeared ordinary. Yet beneath that surface lay tension. Financial disputes. A recent argument with a business partner. Threatening messages deleted from his phone weeks earlier. The neighborhood no longer felt like a quiet suburb. It felt staged. Every trimmed lawn. Every painted fence. A backdrop hiding something darker. Late that night, Detective Mendez received a notification. A private home security system from 2 houses down had finally synced its cloud backup. New footage available. She opened the file. 11:40 p.m. A second figure stood near a parked sedan at the end of the street. Watching the Harper house. Face uncovered. Clear. Unmistakable. Not Victor Kane. But someone far closer to Daniel's world. Someone who had attended his dinner parties. Someone who had shaken his hand. The man stepped into the light. Calm. Patient. Waiting for the signal from the shadows near the driveway. Detective Mendez stared at the screen. Her breath slowed. Recognition settled in her chest like ice. The man by the sedan was Andrew Collins, Daniel Harper's business partner, co-founder, best friend according to every interview. Andrew checked his watch at 11:41 p.m. Impatient. Focused. The second figure in the driveway shifted slightly. A subtle nod. Barely visible. But deliberate. Andrew responded with a single flash of the sedan headlights. Once. Then darkness again. A signal exchanged. Permission granted. Inside the Harper house, Daniel stepped outside moments later. Phone pressed to his ear. His voice calm but tight. Security audio captured fragments from a nearby system. You said you were alone. Why are you outside? A pause. Then Daniel turned slowly toward the driveway. As if realization dawned too late. He went back inside. The hooded figure moved into position. Everything aligned. Everything planned. Detective Mendez felt anger rise beneath her controlled exterior. Betrayal always carried a different weight. Andrew Collins arrived at the police station voluntarily that afternoon. Suit pressed. Expression composed. He expressed shock. Grief. Confusion. He asked if there had been any leads. Detective Mendez placed a printed still image on the table. Andrew standing beneath the streetlight. Timestamp clear. Color undeniable. His jaw tightened. Only for a fraction of a second. Then the mask returned. He claimed he had been driving through the neighborhood to clear his mind. He claimed coincidence. He claimed innocence. Forensic accounting told a harsher story. The company Daniel and Andrew built together had been collapsing quietly. Investments failing. Loans mounting. Insurance policies recently adjusted. Daniel had planned to dissolve the partnership. To expose financial mismanagement. Andrew stood to lose everything. Money. Reputation. Freedom. Phone records connected Andrew to the disposable device purchased that night. A store clerk identified him from surveillance footage. The hooded attacker was traced through traffic cameras 3 counties away. A former employee fired months earlier. Resentful. Desperate. Paid in cash deposits that matched withdrawals from Andrew's private account. Piece by piece, the structure of the crime assembled itself. Cold. Methodical. Cruel. When confronted with the full evidence, Andrew's composure fractured. Sweat gathered at his temples. His breathing sharpened. He insisted the plan was only meant to frighten Daniel. To pressure him. He said he never intended for murder. But intent dissolved beneath the brutality captured on camera. The blade rising. The repeated strikes. The stillness afterward. The jury watched the footage in silence months later. Some turned their eyes away. Others stared in disbelief. The neighborhood residents filled the back rows of the courtroom. They had once waved to Andrew Collins across manicured lawns. Trusted him with their children. Shared meals under summer lights. Now they saw him differently. Not as a grieving friend. But as the architect of violence. The verdict arrived after 6 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Andrew showed no visible emotion as the sentence was read. Life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The hired attacker received the same fate. Maplewood Drive returned to quiet months later. The house at number 17 stood empty for a long time. Windows dark. For sale sign unmoving in the wind. Yet every resident remembered that night. The 12-second pause in the driveway. The single flash of headlights. The silence before chaos. Security cameras still blinked red above garage doors. Still watching. Still recording. Because evil had not arrived in a frenzy. It had arrived with planning. With patience. With a handshake and a smile long before the blade was ever drawn. Years passed. But the footage never faded. It lived online. In documentaries. In late-night discussions. In classrooms where criminal psychology was studied under fluorescent lights. Maplewood Drive tried to move forward. New paint covered old walls. Fresh families moved into number 17. Children rode bicycles past the driveway where the hooded figure once stood. Yet on certain nights, when the wind slipped between the houses, people still glanced at their cameras. Still checked their locks twice. Detective Laura Mendez kept a copy of the case file in her private archive. Not out of obsession. Out of caution. Because something about that night continued to trouble her. Andrew Collins had confessed to hiring the attacker. He had admitted to orchestrating the fear. But there had been one detail he never explained. The 12-second pause. Not the one outside the driveway. Another one. Inside the house. At 11:46 p.m., during the struggle, the security audio captured a faint sound beneath the chaos. A second voice. Low. Close. Whispering something indistinct. For years it remained buried under static. Ignored. Until technology advanced. Enhanced audio reconstruction revealed fragments. 3 words. You owe me. The voice did not match the hired attacker. It did not match Andrew Collins. Detective Mendez felt the same chill she felt that first morning. A third presence. Unseen. Unaccounted for. Forensic reanalysis of the crime scene uncovered a partial fingerprint on the inner hallway wall. Smudged. Incomplete. But distinct from Daniel, Andrew, and the hired attacker. The system searched national databases. No match. The possibility settled heavily. The plan may have involved more than 2 men. Or someone else had entered that house before the police arrived. Someone careful. Someone invisible to the cameras. A retired officer who first responded that night reviewed his body camera footage years later. He paused at a single frame. At 12:08 a.m., just after the ambulance left, a dark SUV idled briefly at the corner of Maplewood Drive. Engine running. Headlights off. It remained there for 8 seconds. Then drove away slowly. No plates visible. No driver identified. It had never been logged. Never questioned. The realization unsettled everyone who reopened the file. Had someone been watching the aftermath? Ensuring silence. Ensuring loyalty. Or confirming that Daniel Harper was truly gone. Maplewood Drive still appears peaceful from above. Neatly trimmed lawns. Symmetrical rooftops. Porch lights glowing like gentle sentries. But beneath that calm surface lies a night frozen in digital memory. A hooded figure. A flash of headlights. A whispered threat. And a truth that may never be complete. Because cameras capture movement. They capture faces. They capture violence in brutal clarity. But they do not always capture every shadow standing just beyond the frame. In the end, the case file grew thick with answers. And thin with certainty. Andrew Collins died in prison years later. He never spoke about a third voice. The hired attacker maintained his silence. No appeals. No confessions beyond what was already known. Detective Laura Mendez retired with commendations on her wall. Yet Maplewood Drive remained the one case she never fully closed in her mind. On her final day, she visited the street one last time. Late afternoon light bathed the houses in gold. Children laughed in distant backyards. Wind moved gently through the trees. Number 17 looked ordinary again. Fresh curtains. A new mailbox. A different family living behind that door. She stood across from the driveway where the hooded figure once paused. 12 seconds that changed everything. She listened to the quiet. To the soft hum of suburban life continuing forward. Crime scenes fade. Headlines disappear. Neighbors heal in cautious silence. But memory does not erase so easily. Cameras still blink red each night. Silent witnesses mounted above doors and garages. Recording arguments. Recording laughter. Recording the unseen moments between. Because what stunned that neighborhood was not only the brutality. It was the realization that danger had worn a familiar face. It had attended barbecues. Shared business deals. Smiled across dinner tables. The horror was not random. It was invited. As the sun dipped lower, Detective Mendez turned away from Maplewood Drive. She understood something now with quiet clarity. Evil rarely announces itself with noise. It arrives softly. Patiently. It waits in the shadows of trust. And sometimes, it is caught on camera. Clear. Undeniable. Preserved forever in flickering black and white. But even then, the full truth can remain just out of frame. Maplewood Drive sleeps peacefully tonight. Porch lights glowing. Doors locked. Cameras watching. And somewhere in the digital archives of a quiet police department, the red timestamp still reads. 11:42 p.m. The moment the ordinary shifted into nightmare. The moment a neighborhood learned that safety can shatter in seconds. And that some images, once seen, never truly let you look away.